Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever stopped to wonder how people actually communicated with the divine way back before we had massive cathedrals or beautifully bound books or, heck, even written language? Well, we're going to dive right into that today. We're exploring how humanity's absolute oldest form of prayer wasn't something spoken or written down. It was burned. Today, we are looking at the theology, the hard science, and the totally immersive sensory experience of sacred incense. And it all kind of kicks off with this really profound truth. Before there were cathedrals, before there were written prayers, there was smoke. Human beings have basically always burned their most precious things as a way to speak with the divine. We're going to look at exactly where deep theology smashes right into our physical senses. This is where prayer becomes something you can literally smell, see, and, almost touch. It's a seriously fascinating journey, and honestly, it might just change how you think about worship altogether. Now, this wasn't just some isolated random phenomenon. It was a completely universal human instinct. If we track this across ancient history, the pattern is undeniable. Take ancient Egypt, for example. Priests there burned something called kaiphai, which was this complex blend of 16 different ingredients. We're talking honey, wine, exotic resins. And to them, that smoke wasn't just a nice room freshener. No, they viewed it as the literal, visible breath of the gods. Then you move over to Mesopotamia, where kings sent the smoke of cedar and cypress rising straight up from those massive, towering ziggurats. They believed the gods literally smelled the sacrifice, making smoke the actual language of devotion. And all of this builds up and culminates in biblical Israel with the commanded Exodus Kataret. But the biblical tradition, it took incense and cemented it into something completely unique. The Ketoret, that's the sacred incense formula, wasn't just some optional decoration. God strictly commanded it in the book of Exodus. We're talking about a highly specific, mandated blend: stacte, onycha, galbanum, and pure frankincense. And get this, these ingredients were not exactly easy to find. They had to be transported thousands of miles along these ancient, treacherous incense routes coming out of southern Arabia. This stuff was literally worth its weight in gold. So to burn it, to just watch all that wealth turn to ash and vanish into the air, that was an act of total, ultimate surrender. It was about giving up your absolute most precious resources just to physically meet the divine. So that brings us to the big question. Why? Right? Out of all the powerful symbols available to the human imagination across history, you've got water, earth, stone. Why did our ancestors zero in on something as fleeting and, ungraspable as smoke? To understand that, we kind of have to look at our own biases. Today, our modern assumption is that prayer is a highly intellectual thing. We tend to say things like, let my prayer be a thought, or let my prayer be spoken. It's all in our heads. But the ancient reality was vastly different. Listen to the psalmist in Psalm 141. He wrote, "Let my prayer rise like incense before you." Notice that, not thought, not spoken, rise. The ancients viewed prayer as a literal physical event of transformation. Just like solid matter, the heavy resins and woods, transforms into something ethereal that breaks the rules of gravity to rise upwards, they believed prayer was an active physical ascent. In that rising smoke, it actually teaches us about this incredibly beautiful, profound mystery known as the apophatic way. Now, don't let the fancy term intimidate you. It simply means the path of unknowing. Early church theologians understood something crucial. God isn't an object you can just put in a neat little box, grasp, or control. God is a mystery to be encountered. And smoke is the absolute perfect physical mirror for that theology. Think about it. It appears, it takes shape, you can clearly see it. But the exact moment you try to close your hand around it and hold on to it, it completely vanishes. You can only witness it. You cannot capture it. Okay, let's pivot and ground this mystical idea in some hard science, because honestly, this is where it gets incredibly cool. Think about what happens biologically. When you hear a beautiful chant or look at a stunning stained glass window, that sensory data has to go through your brain's thalamus. It gets processed, analyzed, filtered. It goes through customs, basically. But scent molecules? Oh, they skip the line. They enter the nose and completely bypass the thalamus. Scent goes straight to the limbic system. Neuroscience actually confirms that smell is the absolute only sense that sneaks past our intellectual defenses to directly unlock deep emotional memory. It strikes the brain's emotional center before you even have a split second to think about it. Which brings us right to this foundational truth from the philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty. He said, "We are not minds trapped in bodies, but embodied beings who know the world through perception." And you know what? The ancient church understood this intuitively way, way before neuroscience was even a thing. They knew that we don't just think our way to understanding, we perceive our way there using our physical bodies. By filling a worship space with smoke, bells, and tastes, they weren't just putting on some flashy theatrical show. They were acknowledging that your physical body really matters and that your nose is quite literally a direct pathway to the divine. So, practically speaking, how is this actually managed during a service? Well, if we look at the actual liturgical practice, it relies on a very specific, carefully crafted instrument, the thurible, or you might know it as a censer. It's this brass or bronze vessel suspended on these long chains. And that perforated lid you see, that isn't just there to look pretty. It's highly functional. It allows the smoke to escape while safely containing the fiercely burning, red-hot charcoal inside. It's the exact tool that allows this wild burning process to be safely ritualized and beautifully choreographed. Now, you might notice the number 9 here. When a priest swings that thurible, the motion is absolutely not random, not at all. In many traditions, it's swung in 3 sets of 3, so that makes 9 swings total. But, and here's the cool part, it's more than just counting. The physical motion of those swings actually traces the shape of infinity in the air. It's a literal, physical choreography designed to symbolize the Holy Trinity. Every single movement, every swing has a deliberate language and a syntax. And when this smoke is actually deployed in the liturgy, it choreographs the most sacred, critical moments. It's used right at the reading of the gospel to honor the living word. It's used at the consecration of the Eucharist, accompanying that mysterious moment of transformation. And perhaps most poignantly at funerals. It rises over the departed for the soul's journey, serving as this final, visible prayer for someone who can no longer speak for themselves. By blessing everything from the altar all the way out to the assembly, this choreographed smoke actually slows down time. It unites the entire congregation in one shared, undeniable sensory experience. Because if we are all smelling the exact same thing in the room, we are united in that exact moment. I absolutely love this next metaphor. The ancient church father, St. Ephrem the Syrian, took this physical vessel and used it as a direct metaphor for the internal spiritual life of the believer. He basically viewed the Christian as a living censer. The body itself is the brass vessel. The human heart, that's the burning charcoal. Faith is the spark, the fire that ignites it. And love is the sweet incense that rises up from it all. I mean, what a stunning way to visualize how our own internal spiritual mechanics are actually meant to operate. Let's connect this right back to you and me today. Let's be real, we live in what I like to call the disembodied age. It's a world dominated by screens, algorithms, passive watching, digital fragmentation, constant, never-ending noise, and just extreme haste. We have literally never been more connected, yet we've never felt more fragmented. But contrasted right against that modern chaos is embodied worship. We're talking matter, physical senses, active participating, unity, silence, and patience. In our modern era, returning to the physical, unhurried, material nature of incense, it isn't just some quaint, outdated, dusty tradition. It is actually a radical act. It's a radical act of reclaiming our bodies and demanding that our time cannot be artificially rushed. And this deep need for embodiment, it spans across all sorts of traditions. The massively influential Protestant theologian Karl Barth perfectly captured why this still matters today with this very simple, profound quote. The Christian life should have a little bit of incense about it. What he meant was that faith shouldn't just be about being correct all the time, or constantly arguing points, or reducing everything to a cold intellectual checklist. No, it needs to be beautiful. It needs to be physically perceived. It absolutely has to engage our bodies and our senses in a world that's so full of disembodied digital abstraction. So to wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this incredibly provocative image from the teachings of the ancient rabbis. They said that when the Ketoret was offered in the temple, the smoke formed a pillar that rose straight up to heaven. No wind could bend it, no storm could break it. Whether you take that literally or metaphorically, it serves as a seriously powerful reminder. When what is most precious to us is fully surrendered, it forms an unbending pillar. It shows us that the human soul, much like that rising smoke, is quite literally made to rise. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder today. In your own daily life of fragmentation and haste, what physical, beautiful practices are you using right now to help your own soul rise?